Hey, welcome to the shop. This video is a little different than others on my channel here so far. Instead of making, fixing, or engineering something, today I'd like to tell you a story. I guess you could say it's a love story. The mid-1970s Honda CB400 Fours always had a special place in my heart. I was about 10 years old when they first rolled off the line in 1975, so for me it's not about recalling some feeling of love at first sight when I saw one in a showroom. You know how sometimes you see a bike and it just grabs you by the heart. My relationship with the 404 runs much deeper than that. My only brother John was 12 years older than me, and as a kid I really looked up to him. He was my trailblazer. He was the one doing all the cool stuff our parents said not to do, and sometimes he even got away with it. For one thing, our mom had a strong dislike for motorcycles, but John loved them. I recall hearing stories about the fallout in our house when he brought home his first bike, probably sometime in the early 1970s. And as a parent now, I can appreciate my mother's wisdom, but back then, John really had me drinking the motorcycle Kool-Aid. In fact, he bought my sister and me our first bike. It was a 1975 Yamaha Chappie. Lord knows our mother would never have allowed that, so he surprised all of us one evening when he arrived home with a brand new mini bike in the back of a pickup. That moment, almost 50 years ago, is when I became a motorcyclist, in the deepest sense of the word, and I knew then it was for life. About a year after John blessed our lives with that little Chappie, he rolled into the yard with a shiny new, parakeet yellow, 1976 Honda CB400 Four. He had traded in his 1973 CB350G. I recall the first time seeing and hearing that 400F coming up the hill on the road toward our place, and climbing that steep curving hill was always one of those chances to give the throttle a little extra twist. You bikers know what I mean. So I watched from the driveway as this bike headed toward me, that little four-cylinder engine announcing its arrival to everyone within about a mile. I wasn't old enough to appreciate the CB400F at the time. I just recall thinking it was all that. It became the first street bike I ever rode on after John finally got my mom's permission to take me for a spin. That's another memory about these little bikes that's locked in my brain. Blasting through the wind, hearing that little engine sing, and leaning through the corners at what felt like fantastic speeds. I guess in hindsight they were within the speed limit. Mom would have set some rules that John didn't break after all. But it felt fast, and it sounded fast. Jumping ahead to the early 1980s, a family friend had loaned me her low-mileage 1977 Candy Antares Red CB400 Four to use as a daily rider. You know how it is when you first start to drive, your first vehicle, whatever it is, that's your ticket to freedom. You're no longer confined to walking or riding a bus or bicycling, or in my case, sneaking dirt bikes around on public roads or bothering somebody to take you someplace. Suddenly you can go where you want, when you want. All at once, I experienced that feeling of liberation and the thrill of having a pristine CB400F as a daily rider together, and those feelings are now merged into one fond memory that's likely more than the sum of its parts. In the 1980s, most of the misfits I ran with had a 1970s Honda CB4 at some point. A few of them were 400s. I'm sure those old bikes still tug at the heartstrings of many from the old gang. I'll have to ask at our next reunion if we ever have one. But time passed and we all moved on in our choice of motorcycles and in our lives. I, for one, didn't have the money for bikes when I was a starving university student. After that, in the early phase of my career, I just really didn't have time for it. And then my young family became the priority in the 90s. It wasn't until the late 1990s that I even thought it could be realistic to have my own 404 someday. And I've had lots of bikes since then, but a 404 has always been at the top of my list. The 404s weren't the sales success that Honda was hoping for. North Americans wanted more displacement, I guess, and most shoppers opted for a 550 or a 750 when they were looking at Hondas. So Honda discontinued the 404 after 1977, here in Canada at least. In total, they sold about 100,000 worldwide. By the 1990s, more enthusiasts recognized the 404 for what it is. One of the first Japanese production sport bikes. It had low handlebars, rear set foot pegs, a novel, at least in 1976, 6-speed gearbox, and a glorious 4-into-1 exhaust that looks really good and sounds even better, especially when it's belting out the song of that high-revving little inline 4. Since, in Honda terms at least, there weren't many 404 sold, they're hard to find now, and whenever I've talked to someone over the decades who owned one, I let them know where they could sell it. I'm pretty sure none of those guys has sold his yet. They know what they have. In 2015, I started looking in earnest to buy a 404. I was stoked with enthusiasm after restoring a 1984 V65 Sabre, another Honda marvel from yesteryear, and I felt like I was ready to fix up almost any 404 that I could find. I just couldn't find one. And after 6 months of hunting, I stumbled onto a decent 1975 CB550K project, and I just decided that was a good plan B, so I bought it. I won't get into the story of that CB550 project today. I have a series of videos on the channel about it. I will say that I was really happy with the final product. I had never done a frame-off restoration of a motorcycle before, but I had been wrenching as a hobby for about 40 years, so I thought I could do a passable job. And as beautiful as that 550 was, 2 years after finishing it, I realized I'd still only put about 100 miles on it. It was a fun, challenging project, and the finished product worked great, but riding it just didn't stir my emotions like I hoped it would. Turns out it was just a project. I had never owned a CB550 before that one, so it had no meaning for me. We didn't have a history together. So I sold it to a good home, and I've never had the slightest pang of regret. The proceeds covered a good chunk of the cost for a nice 2008 Goldwing, yet another Honda marvel. So that old CB has given me miles of smiles in another way. And now my tale reaches the summer of 2022. By then I had bought, fixed up, and sold a couple of more old bikes, and I was snooping around for my next project, but I had long given up on finding a CB400F. I was watching the ads daily, and I just didn't have anything specific in mind. All I knew was that I was looking for something interesting. Well, you know what? A CB400F popped up for sale 20 minutes away from me in fair condition at a reasonable price. And get this, it was a 1976 in parakeet yellow, identical to my brother John's. In those rare times a 404 pops up for sale around here, it usually sells instantly. There are so many people out there hunting for those old CBs, and there are so few 400s among them. But through some twist of fate, I was the first to get to this one, and I bought it within a few minutes of laying my eyes on it. Love at first sight. It needs some minor work, and it's not 100% stock, but it doesn't need a full restoration. So I can work away at the cosmetics while I enjoy riding it this fall. Then I think over the winter I'll do the bigger things, like replacing the leaky head gasket. I'll give the valve train a once-over, and I have to track down some wiring gremlins. I'm looking forward to this project, so I'll make some videos about it. Riding a 400F for the first time in 4 decades has been a profound experience for me. The feeling of freedom, the smell that floats up from an air-cooled engine when you're stopped at the light, and that little engine's punch above its weight rumble at idle, added to the way it howls when it's wound up. All this kind of came back to me instantly, and it isn't fading now. I get the feelings every time I ride this bike, and I've ridden it hundreds of miles already. It isn't an especially fast bike, but it still feels fast, and it still sounds fast. This is a bike that has meaning for me. We have a history together. My brother John's life was cut tragically short in 1979. But every time I ride this 1976 parakeet yellow 404, he rides with me. Nobody needs to ask if I'll ever sell it. Unlike that CB550, I can't see myself letting this one go. It took us too long to find each other. Thanks for watching.